Hey guys, welcome back to Critical Flick. Today I'm reviewing In the Earth. In the Earth is a new horror film that was directed by Ben Wheatley. I've really actually enjoyed some of the films that Ben Wheatley has put out. I thought High Rise was a pretty solid film. I really do love Free Fire. I think it's one of the more underrated A24 films, so I was really excited to see what came from him next. And one of the interesting things about this movie, it was filmed during the pandemic, and it actually references the pandemic, and I think it's the first movie that I've seen that does make note of the current events, and it's kind of weird watching it. I'm really interested to see if filmmakers moving forward decide to address the pandemic in movies or kind of just make it a separate own thing. I really think it's a decision that they're going to have to make moving forward because it's going to date movies, obviously, if you decide to do that, but it definitely makes it feel immersive, and it's kind of surreal to see that in a film. But anyway, because it is filmed during this time, it is pretty small scale. There's not that many characters. There really are only 4 main characters in the film overall. So like I said, it's a little more small scale, a little small budget, but I think they're able to utilize the overall setting and the atmosphere of the film in a way that it doesn't feel like it's hindered by the fact that it's being filmed during these times. So a quick overview of the story is you have a scientist who's coming to this small rural area, this forested area, because he's trying to research the soil. The soil is extremely fertile, and they want to know what's going on with it. He wants to go into the forest and see maybe what the source of all this is. And you start to realize very quickly there's something supernatural about this area, something very ancient and powerful that's happening in this forest. And as he ventures out into this forest with another scientist, they end up encountering 2 individuals that have very different ideas of what to do when it comes to this power and where this power is emanating from. The movie quickly turns into a folk horror film, akin to something like Midsummer, which is one of my favorite movies. I think folk horror is really, really effective in my opinion, because it creates this overpowering ancient force that just really expands the world. It really expands the lore of this small film, and I think they utilize it really well. It doesn't hit you over the head with the lore or the ritual. It hints at it, it makes references to it, but it doesn't feel like it's too bogged down in the technicalities. And I feel like if you're someone watching it, you might think the story is a little thin, to be honest with you, because they don't dive into a lot of what it is or how it works, but then you do get some interesting ways of expanding it in your own way. Tortilla, who plays the other main character in the film, I think has the biggest standout role. As I said, the movie does start to get a little crazy, get a little more psychedelic, to that old ritualistic folklore, so she's kind of thrown into the powers that be in this forest. And you know in movies when someone is possessed or overtaken by powers or having delusions or hallucinating, that it can be really hard to pull off that in a convincing way, but I think she does, and you feel very compelled by her character. One of the more interesting aspects of the movie, in my opinion, is, like I said, there are 2 people that they meet out in this forest. One is going towards the more traditional and ritualistic ways of communicating with the power and channeling the power in the forest, and another one who's going a more scientific route, trying to communicate with the forest in lights and sounds and creating this really interesting concept of science versus myth, and folklore versus science, and how those 2 clash with each other and mix and blend throughout the years. So I like how you have those 2 very distinct things happening. One thing I will say about the movie that I didn't necessarily love, it's pretty slow burn to get up to the big parts of the movie. And because it is filmed during the pandemic, I feel like some of the editing is a little jarring because they have to film in these different locations without big budget and a big crew. So it kind of jumps very quickly back and forth. There's a couple blackouts. There's actually quite a few blackouts in between scenes. And I guess that throws you into the disorienting nature of the movie and the disorientation of the characters themselves. But as a movie viewer, it feels a little disjointed. But I think thinking back on it, it maybe is a stylistic choice to make you as disoriented as the people in the film. And it really dissolves into just a full hysteria at the end of the movie. There's tons of ridiculous flashings of light and sound. I think it's utilized in a way that's really effective. Because as an audience, you're feeling what these characters are feeling. You feel like, what is happening? There's so much noise and flashing and just different symbolisms and everything that's happening. There's sounds, and it's all blending together and creating this whirlwind of just action. So I think it's used well because it's, like I said, it's limited on what they can do. But I think with the small sample and the small cinematography they had, I think it's pretty effective. So overall, if I were to rate this movie, I would give it a 7 out of 10. Like I said, I feel like there could have been a little bit more to it. It could have been a little more polished, but the overall disorientation of the movie, I think, benefits it more than it hurts it, because you feel so confused and so thrown into this folklore and this mysterious forest. The ending, it's okay. I feel like to have such a slow burn lead up to it, it doesn't have that huge, humongous payoff, but in a way, it makes sense. It's a more simplistic ending, and overall, I thought it was somewhat satisfying. So if you checked out In the Earth, let me know what you thought about it, because it is a movie that I feel like some people might really enjoy. If you're someone like me who likes that folklore horror, you're going to like it a little bit more. If you go into it expecting a traditional horror movie or something really action-packed, you might be a little disappointed. Like I said, it's a strange film, and I know it's filmed under different circumstances than a lot of movies, so I have to give it a little credit just for that. So again, thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe. And see you guys next time.